ever seen. He won that. He made top 8 Mythic 5. He made top 8 here. Javier, by the way, also made top 8. Won Mythic 5, top 8 here. So incredible results from the both of them.
We're going to get underway here in our upper semifinal. Now, this is a mirror match in terms of colors chosen, but it would be hard to call a mirror match beyond that. There's two strategies actually quite different from each other here. Yeah,
the strategy that Javier is using, which we've seen a number of times from other players throughout the course of this event, is he's looking to get down his cheap threats, or at least his significant threats, like in the form of Nightpack Ambusher, and back them up with counter magic. And this is basically a perfect draw for Javier. You know, he has the Paradise Druid to ramp him into Nightpack Ambusher, which is going to allow him to keep up mana each turn while still keeping up generating threats from the Ambusher itself. So this is very much optimal for him, and a pretty strong draw for Mengucci as well, because he has Risen Reef and a second Risen Reef to really get his ramp and card advantage going.
That's right. He fired off the Risen Reef there right into potential counter magic, but Javier said, you know what's more important? That I resolve this Nightpack Ambusher and get things rolling. And look at this. He offers the Paradise Druid for the Risen Reef, and Mengucci wastes 0 time trading that off there. Hydrate Krasis on top of the library off of Temple of Mystery. Not really what Javier wants at this point. He's already got one in his hand, and he's going to leave that Mystical Dispute available, as well as Nightpack Ambusher making a 3/3 Wolf on end step since he didn't cast any spells. A second copy of Risen Reef now on the stack, and in fact onto the battlefield here for Mengucci. And that Mystical Dispute is starting to wear thin quickly here.
It is, though it's also worth noting that Mengucci's deck looks to play some very big spells. We see 2 copies of Finale of Devastation in hand. He's looking to frequently play that for even 10 to get the trigger to kill your opponent with the End Raise Forerunners, but very often you just want to play it to get your Cavalier in play, so that means 5, and that costs 7 mana, so that's a lot that you can end up still getting disputed for.
That's right. Mystical Dispute is going to find a target here. Obviously not the optimal one, though. Hydrate Krasis has a trigger when you cast it, and the cards end up going into hand anyway. But he really needed the blocker, it looks like, and that's actually going to be the game.
I mean, that wasn't quite lethal just yet, but that was not a game that Andrea Mengucci thought that he had a good chance of winning, and he is someone who, he just concedes when he's like, okay, not going to win? All right, I'm going to save my mental energy. Even just like recently, I believe like last weekend, he made his first ever Grand Prix top 8. I believe it was in Lisbon, playing Legacy. And one of the things that I remember him actually specifically tweeting was about a match that he conceded early so he could win the next 2 games. And some of it is a matter of time, especially when you're playing in tabletop and you're playing a slower deck. But some of it is just a matter of, okay, I can't win. I'm not gonna waste my brain power on a game that is already lost. I'm just gonna move on to the next and conserve that mental energy.
And that, of course, means that we are now in the sideboarded game. So we're going to see how these players want to approach their sideboards for the given matchup. Of course, when you're playing a flash deck, particularly the play versus draw stuff comes up big. And it looks like we're all ready to go here for game number 2. Game 1, very quick.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that really was just Javier's deck operating absolutely as it's intended, firing all the cylinders. He had the acceleration, he had the threat that generated more threats, and he had the counter magic.
Looks like a mulligan here from Dominguez, but he's got a pretty decent hand. Growth Spiral into double Frilled Mystic. As long as Mengucci doesn't do a whole lot of stuff early, he may be able to keep him at bay and try to find some better threats down the line.
One of the really interesting things and the important things in this matchup after sideboarding is the fact that Mengucci does have Mystical Dispute. That does allow him to back up his threats with counter magic, and also crucially can even allow him to stop, for instance, this Growth Spiral right now.
Curious to see if Mengucci feels like firing something off. He has 2 different options for it, and he does. He's going to use Ether Gust on it, recognizing the key from going from 2 mana to 4 mana for Javier's deck. And look at this, he even draws a Nightpack Ambusher to go with a double Frilled Mystic, but he doesn't have the mana for it. The good news for Javier, he's got Sinister Sabotage, so he can keep up a valuable counter spell here and at least fight some type of fight this turn.
And this is really the difference between these 2 decks. The Flash deck, well, it plays at instant speed. It plays Flash. So Javier is able to hold up, okay, if you do something, I'll play Frilled Mystic. If you don't, I'll play Nightpack Ambusher. Whereas for Mengucci, most of his big threats he has to play during his main phase. We see the Cavalier of Thorns there. He's like, all right, I'm going to play it. You got it? No? Yes? And here, if he draws if he draws an untapped land, he would be able to play Nissa, Who Shakes the World, with the Mystical Dispute backup. However, he does not. He draws a Temple.
So the question is, does Javier go for Night Pack Amateur? The answer is yes. But Mengucci, with the mana available to just hardcast Mystical Dispute and counter it.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot because it does mean that Mengucci does not have the ability to back up one of his big threats with that Mystical Dispute. He chose to keep Javier from being able to land a threat on the board, which does give Mengucci time, which is one of the key things here. Again, we mentioned this previously. This is not a control deck that Javier is playing. It is more of a tempo deck. You're using your counter magic to back up pressure on the board. You don't have inevitability, especially over a deck like Ramp.
Ooh, nice one. Nissa, Who Shakes the World, off the top of the library there for Javier Dominguez.
It's a very powerful card here, but it is crucial that if he does play the Nissa, he cannot keep up Frilled Mystic. And that could allow, yeah, look at this. The choice to allow Mengucci to just go rather than play Nissa. In a lot of matchups, you'll just play Nissa there because Nissa is stronger than anything your opponent can do. But you really don't want your opponent to just be able to land a Cavalier of Thorns because that does brick wall so much of what you're looking to do.
So patience is the name of the game. Wow, another copy of Nissa, Who Shakes the World. But right now, Javier Dominguez is happy with things because he's actually head on board and applying significant pressure.
The Frilled Mystic is the clock, right? The Frilled Mystic is hugely impactful.
Now he gets to deploy a second copy of Frilled Mystic,
but it's going to be dispute into dispute.
Fight the dispute fight, though. And you know what? Mengucci knew that this was coming because the 2 turns ago, Javier played an untapped Breeding Pool and then used a Frilled Mystic. And Mengucci has to think to himself, why would you need that extra 1 mana?
Right.
And the answer was Mystical Dispute. So he's not surprised to see that happen. But now the disaster scenario strikes here for Mengucci. It's Nissa, Who Shakes the World, hitting the battlefield. And 3, 6, 9, down to 5 goes Mengucci.
It's just a 2-turn clock.
He's got no cards in hand, and that's game. Javier Dominguez, in 2 quick games, wins his upper semifinals match against his friend, Andrea Mengucci.
Yeah, and that match was shorter than many games we have seen over the course of this event. Javier just really had all the goods, and Mengucci had okay draws, but just not nearly enough. Even in that game with 2 copies of Mystical Dispute,
yes,
he was not able to answer